Good evening. The Taoiseach says he's concerned about the activities of the far right in Ireland. It comes after a number of tents were burned at a makeshift camp for asylum seekers in Dublin at the weekend. Far right protesters targeted the people who'd been sleeping rough while waiting for their asylum applications to be processed. Leo Varadkar condemned the attacks.
I am worried about it. We've seen these kind of things happen in other countries. Ireland is a normal country, unfortunately. Not unfortunately, but Ireland is a country like any other country. There is always going to be an element of people who have far-right views or racist views, and an element of people who will turn to violence. But I think we as a society have to reject that unequivocally.
Electricity supports for businesses are being extended by 2 months. They were due to run out at the end of May. But the Finance Minister, Michael McGrath, has confirmed his intention to extend the relief until the end of July.
At the moment, we've about 30,000 businesses in Ireland who are registered for that particular scheme, and it can pay up to 50% of the increase in the per unit energy cost that they've experienced relative to last year. So it's a scheme that is of great value.
A group calling for a major upgrade of the A5 in Northern Ireland say the road is not fit for purpose. 50 people have lost their lives on the route between Derry and Auchnacoy in Tyrone since 2006. Proposals to build a dual carriageway in its place were first published back in 2007 but were pushed back due to funding issues and legal challenges. Kate Corrigan's son Nathan died in a crash on the A5 in 2021 and says her reason for campaigning for a better road is simple.
We're all doing it for the same reason, and that's to save lives. It's not to be, we don't want people to lose land, we don't want to damage the environment, we don't want to destroy habitats or have an adverse effect on climate control or air quality or whatever the other legal challenges that they put forward is. We just want to preserve life and to save lives.
That's it for now. More news in an hour.
News Talk weather.
Thanks to Ryanair. Best birthday present ever. Give a Ryanair gift card.
Tonight will be dry with long clear spells, lows of 2 to 6 degrees Celsius. Now you're up to date on News Talk.
Your chance to win big. News Talk's cash machine.
Cash machine's been reloaded. The new number is €21,872.36. Text play to 57557. Get your entry in by 3 o'clock tomorrow. And then across the Go Loud network of stations, Barry Dunn will make the call. If your phone rings, answer within 5 rings, the exact amount in your own cents, and the cash is yours. So remember, the new amount is €21,872.36. Over 18s only. Text cost here at 50. And you're playing across the Go Loud network of stations. Terms and conditions on newstalk.com.
The Football Show on Off the Ball.
With Sky. All the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then.
What about your start to the game? It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Now, welcome along. Football show is coming at you, so there is live football continuing here at home. Shamrock Rovers have equalised against St Pat's at Tallaght Stadium. They are 12 matches unbeaten. It is 1-1. And up in Derry, second place Derry are 1-0 up against fourth place Dundalk is where we are in the live football here at home this evening. Meanwhile, King Power Stadium, all hail Curtis Jones. Liverpool 2, Leicester 0. Both goals courtesy of Jones. The second one in particular was a bit of a doozy, so Liverpool comfortable with the second half just getting underway as we speak. This is a position Leicester are very accustomed to. In their last 19 games, they have scored first a grand total of once. The other 18 games, it's been the opposition who've scored first. So that is a trend, I think we can safely say. If they win this evening, Liverpool are 1 point behind Manchester United. United, of course, do have a game in hand. But still, they're keeping them honest. Jurgen Klopp said pre-game we'll have to win all of our games to have any chance of Champions League football. That is probably true, but the form they're in, certainly stranger things. Let us bring in Mr. Pat Nevin. Good evening.
Good evening, Joe. How are you doing?
Yeah, very well. Very well. So plenty going on. I was just reading a piece yesterday on Leicester. Jonathan Northcroft was charting their downfall from last season. I mean, we talk about Leicester potentially going down and we talk of 2016, but the piece just reminded me last year Leicester finished 8th, having had 2 5th-place finishes before that, but they finished 8th, and Brendan Rodgers departed for the summer saying things like, well, we're 5th in goals scored, we're 8th in goals conceded, and most of those have been from set pieces. If we tidy those up, then we can really affect the top of the table. And he came back from his summer holidays and was talking about survival and change of expectations, and if the club tell me they can't afford a certain player, I have to accept that. So it's not a decline from 2016 as much as it is from just last year.
Yeah, but declines in top level football clubs do happen very, very quickly, and it's no surprise to managers because they can smell it, they can feel it coming. You just need to lose 1 or 2 players and then not replace them. Also, 1 or 2 players getting older. You have a look at the numbers of goals that Jamie Vardy's scoring in comparison to what he was before 2, 3, 4 years ago. And that's a gigantic amount of goals that you're missing there already. That's not his fault. Nobody can help being a little bit older than they were. But losing players like Fofana, etc., the ones that they were driving to get through, it's hard. And Rodgers will have known all along, when you do that and you're at top level in the Premier League, you've got to replace at least like for like, and 1 or 2 that have come in haven't done as well. I like the look of Feist when he came in, but it's been a bit up and down, and certainly defensively they haven't looked good enough, and I'm not blaming it all on him, but you do need to keep on regenerating all the time. And it's been shown time and time again how quickly that it can, I mean, some teams just over a period of a number of years go slowly but surely downhill, but it can go off the edge of a cliff. And it goes off the edge of a cliff because you've let the best players go and you've not invested really wisely. It seems a very, very clear case with Leicester, who, let's be fair, have been punching above their weight for a long, long time anyway, but it looks very concerning for them.
Well, it sure does. Now, don't worry, I'm not coming at you specifically here, but I do presume you are accused by all manner of fans of bias in your work. Do you get that? You're biased against us? Is that a routine thing in your profession?
That's very common. I got it at the weekend. Okay. I was at Manchester United game, and I didn't think they played particularly well. I thought they looked okay, pretty average. 2-0 probably slightly flattered them, and I got accused of bias after that. Okay. Just telling the truth, I'm afraid. Yes,
well, I guess pundits get that, and that is unfortunately one of the downsides of the profession. But spare a thought for Martin Tyler, renowned Martin Tyler, who was eating his cornflakes and listening to Talk Sport this morning. Simon Jordan and Jim White doing their thing. Martin Keown was in the guest chair, and this isn't deranged, paranoid fan Martin Keown. This is invincible Martin Keown, and he had some things to say about Martin Tyler. Have a listen.
The Sky commentary yesterday, how biased is the commentary team? It's frightening. As much as they're great.
Oh, hang on, and what?
Martin Tyler is a great professional, but he cannot hide that he simply doesn't. It hurts him that Arsenal might win a game of football.
Martin Tyler, it hurts Martin Tyler that Arsenal win a game of football.
We know that Neville's got the problem. He was almost apologising for. I've lost my mind when we should be sending Martinelli off. No, not at all. You go with your instinct. So there we are. As a poke in the eye to a commentator. I should be more respectful. Martin's a great commentator, but please, Sky, don't put him on the Arsenal games anymore. It's really hard. Listen,
Gary Neville's bias.
But we talked about it. We talked about it off air before we came on air. So certain people pushed me to say it. I didn't really want to come here with
Nobody
that.
Nobody pushed you to say it. You said it. Martin, you positively lassoed me out there to ask me, did I think Martin Tyler and Gary Neville? I think
you tell me.
Tyler is
tell me then.
Is.
Get the Arsenal fans. They've got to listen to it. There's only 60,000 in the stadium, but most of us, there's millions of us listening at home. Ask them what they think.
What, you think he's anti-Arsenal?
Yes, I do. All right, let's get it out there. Come on.
It's good stuff.
Oh God, you don't often get Martin railed so. Footballers we used to get him railed very easily. In fact, Kevin Sheedy once got him very railed, so Martin just smacked him one when we were playing together at Everton. But the difficulty is when you're talking about something, and I was watching that game as well, and some of the tackles early on were I thought the decisions were weird, right? I grant you they were weird. And certainly think that both of the commentators were thinking, there was one moment Gary Neville said, am I going mad here? I.e., he was confused by the refereeing decisions. It didn't sound to me like an anti-Arsenal bias from them. Having said that, they didn't seem to be hurting greatly that Arsenal were blowing it yet again. But then, end of the season, is it because, it's just the end of the season, it's just another game. They're not as invested in it as they would be with other teams for whatever reason. But bias and wanting one team to win or lose, you can aim at that, some of us who have played before, because we played for the teams. Find it hard to do that with Martin, to be honest. Very, very hard.
It's not true. It's just not true. And, he's not very excitable, actually, generally when goals are scored anymore, such as his style. I'm kind of okay with that style, by the way. I feel like we see a lot of goals. I don't need someone to lose their mind every 5 seconds, which I think some commentators are guilty of. But I listen back for the Brighton goals. It's not like he's losing the plot, delighted that Brighton have scored. He's just, pretty factual about the whole thing.
I think that's well spotted from you. Absolutely. I noticed that with Martin's commentaries. They have changed. They have adapted over the years. And certainly the last few years, the kind of youngster getting carried away. And it kind of shows a wee bit that when he's toned down a little bit more and not thinking that every single goal is the greatest thing that's ever happened in the history of humanity, there are other commentators that have gone the other way. And maybe it accentuates what you think he's doing because you expect this extreme noise from him. But it's not his style now. He's not adapted it, but he's just matured into a different style and a quieter style. Hands up, I happen to like him a great deal. I happen to admire the way he commentates the vast amount of times. But everyone feels it. Have you never felt? I've felt it myself. I've done games. I remember one game where I actually had to own up to it, and I was biased. Actually one game, just one. And it was a Hibernian versus Dunfermline game, and I did want Hibernian to win. And I listened back and I thought, nah, I got that one wrong. Okay. Clearly, not leaning, but just talking about my team that I favoured far more and seeing it from their perspective. And it's good now and again to get a little wake-up call to say, look, there's people listening, there's people considering, people hurting. And you need to always take that into consideration to some degree. So even though I agree with you that I don't think Martin Tyler was in any way biased, it's not the worst thing in the world to hear. It's been tough. Martin's had a couple of tough moments. Martin Tyler's had a few tough moments this season where bits of commentary that have rebounded back on him that, were definitely undeliberate. And it's such a shame because I know I'm no 25-year-old anymore. And anytime you make an error or don't get it quite right, you always think the same thing. Wait, am I getting a bit old for this? Am I catching this right? And of course, you made those errors all your life. It's nothing got to do with that most of the time. But I still think he's up there with the best. And I don't think he's biased. And by the way, I happen to know what team he supports.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Are we allowed to reveal this or no?
No, I'm not. I can't tell you, but I know who he supports. And it's I don't think it's a team that people would have thought of, really.
Well, everyone says Manchester United. Everyone says Manchester United,
No.
Oh, well, there you go. So the weekend that was, Arsenal's title challenge officially over, I think we can say now. A potential banana skin at Goodison Park swatted aside by Man City, followed by 3-0 at the Emirates. On Saturday, it was Leeds 2, Newcastle 2. Villa beat Spurs 2-1. Chelsea with Pochettino arriving in the summer 2-2 with Forest. Manchester United, as you mentioned, 2-0 winners at home to Wolves, and Southampton consigned to the Championship, beaten 2-0 at home to Fulham. The bottom three, by the way, as things stand, Forest are 3 points clear of the relegation zone. They've had 2 wins and 1 draw in their last 4, which is a real upturn in form. So if you take it that they're looking a touch safer, then perhaps it is 2 of Everton, Leeds or Leicester. We'll come back to that in due course. So Arsenal 0, Brighton 3. Martin Odegaard summed up the situation. Direct quote here: "It feels like there is no hope." So I think we can take that as we know we're not winning the league. And Arteta was saying a week ago at St James's Park, "I was standing here feeling proud, and today we have to apologise for the performance in the second half. It was not acceptable." So they've dropped 5 points dropped points in 5 of their last 7 games. To what extent do you think the manner in which City dealt with potential banana skin did feed into Arsenal mood, energy levels, enthusiasm, etc.?
It wouldn't have helped, but I don't think it's the problem. The problem's much longer than that, much deeper than that. And when I say problem, I'll have Mark Keown shouting at me in a minute. But it's not really a problem. It's what we've all seen. We've talked about this through the season. I've never thought that Arsenal are going to win the league. It's because the squad doesn't get enough depth. Now, that's not to say they've not got a lot of good players. It's just that they keep on having to go to the same wells all the time, even when players aren't A, fully fit, or B, more importantly, absolutely on strident best form. They've had to keep on going to the same players time and time and time again. Over a campaign these days, you can't do that quite the same anymore. And it will come home to roost at some point. And it has come home to roost really very noticeably, that some players have come off their game quite a bit. I mean, still great players, and they'll be back again next season. But you can't go and hope to get even close to Manchester City next season without... I don't think he needs to lose many players. He needs to add 2 or 3. But 2 or 3, the convincing players that you expect to start every single week. Or be pushing very, very close to start every single week. And there's a number of positions they need it on. But to say it was, that Manchester City swatting away Everton, I think the damage was done before then. They've known it for quite some time that when it comes to the end, if the sprint that they expected Manchester City to put on, they've put on. That we all expected that they put on, they've put on. And the dip that we expected kind of from Arsenal, well, that's happened as well. There's a bit of me that, for any Arsenal fan sitting and banging their head against the wall, I'm not in any way anti-Arsenal. I feel sorry for them that they've not had the finances to spend, and Arteta hasn't had the finances to spend that Manchester City have. However, having said that, it's still a work in progress, I think. I think he's apologising to fans. I think that's pushing it a bit. They didn't play well. They didn't have any answers. And we could maybe go on to Brighton at some point.
Yeah.
Jeez, they're a team to work out. They're fabulous to watch in a really complicated way. They go up against all normal thinking, how they play. But it seems to work. And if you're kind of, if destroying the normal thought processes, then it kind of really confuses to people. And it confused Arsenal. But had Arsenal had enough creative players and energy left, they could still have been right on the coattails of Manchester City, but they're not, and it's for the reasons I've always suspected.
Yeah, that's true and fair. And West Ham and Southampton, points dropped were pretty much unforgivable under the circumstances. I think Anfield is also not good from 2-0 up, and the Etihad, they were both putrid, but they were also up against a better side, and so that one's a bit more forgivable. I mean, it's not mutually exclusive here to say a really great season, and yet it has unravelled. Now, if you want to use the phrase, they bottled it, you can, I suppose, but it has unravelled.
Lots of people say they bottled it, and you can say that if you like, but yes, it's unravelled near the end. But I do think the manager's not stupid. I think he'll understand the reasons for it. I don't think they should panic. I certainly don't think Arsenal fans should panic, considering where they had been beforehand, to find themselves second place, pushing Manchester City a good part of the way. They've got Champions League football, which they don't always get. And they're a team a club that's looking on the up. And that's the way they should be. It doesn't feel like that just now. But, when they sit back at the end of the season and look back, and then when they consider what they hopefully will bring in and make themselves stronger, that's a very, very good way. And I think an honest way to look at it is, we do get caught up in the moment, and it is one of the classic mistakes that you make. I don't think Arsenal, and I don't think any Arsenal fans, real Arsenal fans, are saying, rip it up and start again. They're saying, yeah, okay, we thought we were nearly there. I talked to a lot of Arsenal fans, and not that many of them really believed. All the way through, even when they were just ahead. There was one little period where there was a bit of a gap, but every Arsenal fan I still said, and maybe that's just history, because they know, it's been a long time since they've been that close. But very few of them absolutely believed that they were going to manage to stay the course. So, football fans, are kind of wise in these sort of things. And what they do need to see is something special. The problem is, you suspect that, last season Manchester City were good. This season, they probably look a bit better. Next season, they might be better again.
Yes, and in anticipation as well of an improvement at Chelsea, of maybe rejuvenation at Liverpool, of Manchester United, another year under Ten Hag, you would presume being better again. it does feel like opportunity missed when you get 50 points on the board at the halfway stage and you have the lead that they had over City. I mean, they have let it slip, and it may well turn out to be, we may well reflect in 5 years' time and say, geez, 2023, it turned out was their best chance to win the league. And so that regret, you would think, may well flourish. Jamie Carragher was doing a piece actually on Monday Night Football just before tonight's game at King Power Stadium. And it was just an interesting one. He didn't get into the why of it, but he certainly identified a decline in Arsenal's fortunes at the back. So pre-World Cup, they were first in goals conceded and first on a whole bunch of defensive metrics, ahead of the pack. And then after the World Cup, with or without Saliba, I hasten to add, this was a problem with or without Saliba, they went from being first defensively on like several different things, like goals conceded, the number of times you concede twice in a game, all these kind of different metrics. They went from first and dropped all the way down to 10th and 12th in a bunch of those areas. And I don't know if there's an obvious reason as to why that happened, but that was a big fall off in their performance defensively more than anything.
The temptation is to, you mentioned Saliba wasn't the only player who was, partly there, partly not there. They had other injuries as well. They had a very settled back four. To give Martin Keown another mention. Arsenal in the good old days, the settled back four never budged, during a game or from game to game to game to game. And it's the one area of a football field you never really want to change if you can keep it exactly the same. But that had to change. So that's one of the reasons, partial reason. But the other one is, I think people do look at defences and go, right, okay, who are our defenders? And it's usually not that. It's usually who's the guys in front of the defenders, or the guy behind the defenders quite often as well. Are they doing the same thing? Are they working the same? Are they killing space? Are they holding the ball? Are they having as much possession in good areas as they were before? Because if you're not, then the opposition have got it, and they've got it in your last third, and you're under more pressure. And you will concede more chances, and it will be more difficult for you. So the easiest thing in the world is to look at those metrics and say, yeah, that's the reason, that's the cause. Or the defenders are the reason or the cause. Sometimes it's not that. The classic old one of it's your strikers, the first line of defence. Well, everybody has to work hard. And you look at the teams that are doing well in the Premier League, the work rate's phenomenal, and the closing down is amazing, and every part of the game has to be right. Don't try telling Pep Guardiola the difference between the defenders, the midfielders and the attackers. It's a unit. And he expects every part of the unit to affect every other part of it. And that's what Arsenal seemed to be doing the first half of the season. Second half of the season, it was more bitty, and you could see that you could actually get through them, whereas beforehand it wasn't. It was a tight unit that you couldn't get through.
Jim in County Clare, who's a Man City fan, can I just tell you, by the way, if you go on to any of the Man City forums, about 75% there think that Martin Tyler is biased against us as well. The internet is full of bonkers people. I mean, is there a forum out there that doesn't think Martin Tyler is biased against their team, really? You mentioned Brighton and De Zerbi. This increasingly looks like just a triumph of coaching. And you said they're doing things quite differently to others. That triggers in the mind. Stephen Kenny, the Republic of Ireland manager, was talking obviously about Evan Ferguson at a recent press conference. But Kenny's a real football enthusiast, and he was raving about Brighton, and he was saying things in his press conference like, no one else is doing this. This is almost a borderline new system. I got to tell you, this is really revolutionary stuff.
I agree. That's what I was saying before. That's why I was really keen to get back onto it. I want to watch them a lot more. But I haven't watched them against, and this was the strange thing. We talked last week, and I said the classic line, which you'd expect to get abuse for. I thought Brighton played well against Everton and get absolutely thumped. Lost 5 goals. And I went, actually, no, you played well. And I bet any money the manager went in afterwards and went, that's fine, that's happened. Don't worry, do the same next week. Just play the same way. You're creating plenty of chances. You could have scored 5 or 6. Everton on the occasion scored with every opportunity they had, and they broke brilliantly, and we'll probably not do that game for another 5 years in that way. You just have weird games and you don't lose it now and again. Watching them against Arsenal, I think it was a bit of a masterclass of what they're good at. Against a team where it suits to do that, to be fair, they tried to close them down. But, the various things about the system and the way they play is one thing, right? But you must have seen it, and every fan must have seen it. They're playing out for the back from stupid areas. Now, let's be fair. They're just ridiculous. Every coach and manager in the world will say, don't try that pass. They always try that pass. And it doesn't make any sense, because in time gone by, you do that against good pressing teams, you lose. You get done. They turn you over and they score. For some reason, the ability they're able to, not only to play out for the back, I mean, they lose it sometimes, but they cover quite well. But not only the ability to play out for the back, but every single player who receives it in the midfield has got such phenomenal confidence with players around him. I mean, I used to talk a lot about this. Jorginho was one of the best, at his best at doing that. It's harder for him now. He's quick with his mind now. He's still a good player, but he's not as quick. But they're getting players in that do exactly that. Every one of them seems comfortable doing it, and then of course you add the skills that they've got up front. But that way of playing for a team, if you do that and you close them down 4 or 5, you close them down 6 like Arsenal tried to do a couple of times, and then they've got the gall to pass through you doing that, and then you're in the wide open spaces. You're now totally confused. That's what I meant by Arsenal. They're thinking, what the hell do we do now? We've just done exactly what we should do. In those circumstances, they shouldn't try to do what they tried to do, but they did it, and they got away with it, and they broke on us. It just messes with players' minds, because you've been training all week, and you've got this system, and you've got this method, and you play against lots of teams, and it works doing that. And then you do it against Brighton, and it doesn't work, and you go, what? What do we do? Yeah. So you're completely, the whole thing gets fractured when that happens.
Yes.
It's fantastic to watch. And I must be honest with you, I keep on thinking, nah, it's not going to work this time. It keeps on working. And when they get beat 5 next time, it doesn't matter. They'll keep doing it. And I love it for it.
They have, one of several, I'm presuming, but certainly one pattern that Kenny referenced. And from memory, the gist of it was that they will play the ball out beautifully, as you allude to there, under all sorts of pressure. And midfielders, say it's a 2 midfield pivot in front of defence, will work the ball to striker or strikers who will come deep, and actually it will be the wide men who will run in behind and they'll be fed through. And again, this is not the normal way of doing things. That was one pattern he touched on. Do you know, listening to you, it's so interesting. So for De Zerbi, it's a triumph of coaching, and I guess Pep being the great exemplar, and Klopp to an extent. We feel now like we are in such an era where coaches are just having more and more and more of an effect on what's happening, and it is because of the technicians that you mentioned. Like Brighton, in yesteryear, Brighton do not have great technicians. So we've got brilliant technicians, you've got perfect pitches, so there is a predictability to all these patterns of play, and so coaches just seem to be engineering so much more than, like, you know, lads run the channels and you know, getting the end of the big man's flicks, which are vague patterns. But like, these patterns seem to be so precise now and preordained. Some of them are. Not all of them are. It's again, a lot of it does come back to versions of things that have gone before. Sure, it really does, and it is. Some of it is Barcelona, how they did it in some certain ways, you know, and they will always play from the back, and they will always have great technicians in the midfield. They've not completely reinvented the wheel here, but they're doing it in a league where it's hard to do it. They're doing it as a team that are not full of what looks like world-class players. So that's the other thing. You can do it when you've got world-class players on the ball all over the place that we all think and know are the best in the business. But you're doing it with players that are not seen to be that. I mean, Billy Gilmour walks in, having played very few games with them, and it's perfect for it. He's absolutely perfect for it. He's as good as anybody at doing that system. It's funny, a lot of people in Scotland were really worried because he wasn't getting many games. And I'm thinking, but he's perfect for them. Well, he's getting his games now, and he will get plenty of games for them. But they've got lots more just like it. And the other thing is, of course, I'm going to be completely biased now. What you're doing is manipulate situations. When you do attack, you get those wide players one-on-one. And to be fair, I'll promise to stop talking about Matoma after a while. But, you know, it just goes by people. It's brilliant. There's so few that do it to that scale. I mean, you compare that to, you know, some of the ones that, you know, like Anthony up at United, and he just never goes by anyone, just goes inside all the time. You think, yeah, thanks, that's easy.
Whereas you look at the likes of Matoma, there's very few. Eze like it as well. I do go on about him as well. Now, obviously, I'm biased. Let's go back on the bias. I like those types of players. But I'll tell you what, they ain't half effective in the modern game. If you take somebody out of the play and they are so systemised that they know exactly where they should be, the whole thing's messed up. And that's another one of the reasons. There's never one reason, but that's another one of the reasons why they see when their good players are playing well in a very old-fashioned way. They get the ball to them in good areas and then they destroy you.
Yeah.
Fabulous to watch.
Trent AlexanderArnold's just scored a free kick for Liverpool. He went across goal, far corner, top right corner from an Henri type position, slides towards the corner flag and does a shrug of the shoulders as if to say, I really am just that good. So that's Liverpool.
Well, that's going to be 7 wins in a row.
Yeah, I know.
And 2 before that were draws as well. So they could win everyone.
They could. I got to go to a break. Just in a sentence, because I wasn't going to talk to you about United too much, but seeing as you were at the game, we touched on this a few weeks ago. And I saw the highlights, and I know what my opinion is. Did Anthony do anything to dissuade you of the sense that he is massively overrated and they've massively overpaid for this guy?
Clearly not.
It's not good.
I know he scored, but to be fair, he just does the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
And, it's. I think Garnacho will be a far better player.
Yeah. 18, a bit scary. I might talk to you about him in a moment then if we can. Football on Off the Ball brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Back with Pat Nevin in just a moment.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, proud partner and supporter of the Republic of Ireland women's national football team.
This is News Talk. Taking Stock.
On this week's Taking Stock, new recruits, Hollywood bots and a seminal European tax case.
Taking Stock.
With Mandy Johnston, thanks to Skillnet Ireland.
Listen and subscribe to the podcast now at newstalk.com or on the News Talk app, powered by GoLoud.
News Talk. Conversation that counts.
Hi, David Keeling here. At Keeling's, we love to work in harmony with Mother Nature, which includes protecting our little friends, the bees. This is the 3rd year of our Keeling's Great Rewilding Initiative, helping to create natural habitats for pollinators to flourish. Look out for our Great Rewilding punnets in store to claim your free native Irish wildflower seed pack, or visit keelingsgreatrewilding.ie for more details. Keeling's, love to grow.
I'm Kathy Kelly, UNICEF Ambassador. Children in Syria are drinking water contaminated with faeces. It may kill them. They've survived conflict and earthquakes. They can't now die from drinking dirty water. Please help UNICEF provide safe water. Visit unicef.ie to donate and help save a child's life today. Thank you.
Guaranteed Irish business members continue to sustain jobs and communities across Ireland, just like your local top-line DIY and builders merchant, serving home, garden and building enthusiasts nationwide for generations. Don't miss Top-Line's great summer sale now on, with fantastic deals on garden furniture, like the fabulous Eden Rose rattan set, reduced by a massive €400, or on barbecues like Sahara 3-burner gas barbecue, now only €399. With over 160 stores nationwide, there's a Top-Line store near you. So look out for the G. Guaranteed Irish. Altogether better.
Hiya, I'm Patter the Piggy Bank. Come here, will I tell you what has me tickled pink? We just got a home energy upgrade with significant government grants from SEAI for attic and wall insulation. You name it. Now we can huff and puff and blow outside and we don't feel a thing. Take it from me, with these savings, you'll be on the pig's back in no time. Search SEAI Home Energy Upgrade to reduce your use and your energy bills and discover a new world of comfort.
Supported by the Government of Ireland.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky, all the football you love in one place. Across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
You're very welcome back. So, League of Ireland this evening, Derry City are 3-0 up against Dundalk at the Ryan McBride Brandywell Stadium, and Rich Towell has just scored for Shamrock Rovers. So they are looking to go 13 unbeaten at home to St. Pat's this evening, so they are 2-1 up. There are 5 minutes to go in the Derry game, 66 minutes on the clock between Rovers and Pats. Meanwhile, at the King Power Stadium, not a good night for Leicester in front of their home fans, 3-0 down to Liverpool. Pat Nevin is with us as ever on a Monday. You mentioned Arsenal will be on the lookout for players. I suspect most clubs will. Declan Rice, the word seems to be this is the summer he will go. If you're Declan Rice and Man City is off the table because, frankly, they just have too many players, where would you go?
The way it's looking just now, massive temptation, just with all you know, because you don't know everything. I mean, if you see Manchester United can tell them they're getting 3, 4, 5 others, then you might think, yeah, that's the one. I think he looks a stick on for Liverpool. He looks a perfect fit for Liverpool. I think he would suit there. His style of play would suit there. He would add that energy that's beginning to fade away from that team, so he'd be suited there. You know, the likes of obviously Chelsea are going to be trying there. They always they try for everyone.
Yeah.
I think that's a hard call for him to go to Chelsea just now where they are at the moment. Whereas a little while, especially if he's Mason Mount is not certainly staying. So I don't know about that one. I think that looks, in position, particularly the position they're in, and the confusions around that club just now, I think they're falling back in his thinking. But you just never know. He'll need to know what's been offered and what's been offered around him. But the temptation, if I wasn't supporter of anyone and I was him at the moment, I'd be very close to Liverpool.
More Pat Nevin. Bias.
Former Evertonian Chelsea goes for Liverpool. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, there's no logic behind it. I just say bias and you have to prove it's not. It's impossible.
You're my bias. I'm just annoyed with Chelsea because I tell you a wee story. Right, there's nobody listening. It's just me and you, Joe, right? Okay. So I write a column for the Chelsea website every Tuesday, and I was coming down a train today to do this job I'm doing tonight in Didcot of all places. And as I was coming down, I wrote the article about, you know, the new manager Pochettino.
Yeah.
When I got down, I realised they haven't announced it yet, so I had to rewrite and do another article. That was something else completely, because you're not allowed to mention his name on the website yet because it's not officially happened.
Okay.
So, well done. Yeah, just here.
Where, and as seen as well, I asked about Rice. What about Harry Kane? So the talk is United in terms of style of play and where he would seamlessly fit into a club, because that's important. Someone his age, you know, he doesn't have years to waste. And Spurs were beaten again at the weekend. Like, it's just a bad joke, really, increasingly. Where would Kane go? Is United the logical fit?
It always seems to be, doesn't it? It always looks like it. You know, him and Rashford, because Rashford's got good intelligent movement as well. So you could actually start doing really different things there if you had Kane and Rashford, along with, as we say, Garnacho looks like he could be very good as well. If you can start getting the best out of Jadon Sancho. Bruno's a player who loves intelligent runs in front of him and can work off players. An intelligent player as well. That looks a very, very obvious one if Harry wants that one, but he's wanted that one before and it didn't happen. I have heard one or two other players from other teams, but you know, what's his other options? You know, move from Spurs to Chelsea or Spurs to Arsenal? I think no. I just think it's unlikely. So I still think if it's going to happen at all, it's probably going to be Manchester United. And we'll see if it does. And I've said it before when he had the chance to go, or he didn't. He thought he had the chance to go before. United was the right time then. It's probably a wee bit past the right time now. But he would still go and he would still have a great effect on them.
Thankfully, you can mention Pochettino here. So,
yes.
It would seem he's going to be the third permanent manager to work under the Todd Boehly Clear Lake capital. Ownership fiasco? I can say fiasco, you can't. Chelsea have spoken to Luis Enrique and to Julian Nagelsmann, and they have plumbed in the end for Pochettino. And interestingly, there have been extensive talks between Pochettino and those at Stamford Bridge. I suspect that those talks are not about his salary. That stuff will all be fairly solvable pretty quickly. I would presume Pochettino is trying to find out what's going on at this place. You know, you've cleared house, some fairly volatile decisions. What do I have control over? Starting with the dressing room door, for instance. Is that your read on why these talks are ongoing? And what is your sense of Pochettino as the choice?
From his side, from Pochettino's side, yes, it must be that. If you look at what he's had in the past, everyone talks about the fact, and it's becoming a cliche now already, that he's good at managing up as well as managing down. That was a very tough thing to do. You know, obviously with Levy, he had that. You know, that's not always an easiest one. But then the hardest one was PSG, having to deal with managing up to, you know, the owners and the director of football, etc. You've got over there. I was going to say managing down to the players, but can you really say that about Neymar and Messi?
No. You're managing up to Neymar, I think.
Exactly. So you're doing that. So you've got this weird thing. And he's always, when you look back to, you know, even Southampton times, he clearly seems like a guy who really enjoys nurturing players. You know, I think it's something that he would be really into. So he must have had a look at the players that they've got, the young players, the attitude, which clearly Molloy and clearly have got of, let's develop something, let's try and develop something long term. It didn't, they feel, work with Potter. They didn't give him a hell of a lot of time, but they feel it didn't work with him. But that's what they want to do. And if you have a look around that group, it's very, very, or a lot of very, very young players. You begin to see little snippets from Madueke, you know, Mudryk. I think everyone seems to agree he was a good player. Everybody wanted him before he went to Chelsea. It's not happened this season. And you look around and there are some good young players, and it must be a serious temptation for him to think, hey, if I'm old them, I could have them for a long time and they might be special. But he's got to be given, you know, complete carte blanche to do what he wants. He can't be told, oh, you have to play this player because we paid X amount of pounds for him, or he's on a big salary. He has to be left alone.
Or he's on an 8-year or 7-year contract. That's slightly tricky thing for ownership and Poch to figure out. If he doesn't fancy X or Y and they've got a 6 or 7 year contract because Todd Bowley and friends thought that was a great idea, then I don't know how that's resolved.
No, I don't know how many of them will be massive concerns for him. I think the ones that he will be more concerned about are, does he fancy Sterling? Does he fancy, you know, Havertz? Does he fancy Ziyech? Does he fancy Pulisic? They'll be the more difficult ones, because moving them on and getting the right price, you know, they're not picking up buttons every week. That might be complicated, but he'll want the ones that he wants kept and they want the ones he wants moved. And that will be probably quite expensive to do, and makes, you know, big upfront losses and doing those sort of ones. I think they'll be the more considered or considerable ones for him. There's the other side of it, which is the looking down from Clearlake and Bolly, and, you know, I suspect he'll take a little step further back come next season. Because
I hope not. I hope not.
Oh, no, but it's too hot out there.
It sure is.
I've watched owners, they don't like it. So they'll step back into the shadows just a little bit. But if you look at what they really wanted, and the one they really wanted to back, it was Graham Potter. And you look at his personality and how he deals with people, and it's like working with a friend.
Yeah.
Well, Pochettino's perfect. It's exactly what you want. You have to always say back to people, because I've been in that position before, of being the man who chooses a manager. There comes a point when you think, I have to work with these guys every week. I don't want to get my head burst with them every single week. I want a very good manager, but someone who I can work with, and he'll get the best out of me and I'll get the best out of him and we'll get the best out of the club. And especially if, you know, if it's not working just now, it's more special when you've had somebody who's, you know, argumentative. I mean, after a Jose Mourinho, you know, and the likes, or a Conte, you got to try and get somebody that's nice to work with, man.
Yeah.
You really got to get your head bust.
I'm sure. And Chelsea, it seems, did have talks with Luis Enrique, and they did have talks with Nagelsmann, and presumably one or two others were sounded out. You weren't in those conversations, obviously, but who would your choice have been?
It's tough. I'd need to talk to him. It really is. As I say, I've been in this situation before, and you walk in, you've got 3 or 4 options, and you've got one in your mind, and you walk out 3 days later after talking to them all, and it's completely different, because you spent time with them, you see their personalities, you find out if they sound as if they're completely invested, or is this just a short-term thing for 2 or 3 years while they want to try something. You want somebody to build into your ethos. You want somebody who's absolutely part of it. So somebody that's fancies living in London, likes London, you know, is good to deal with, sees what you've tried to do in the past and thinks, right, okay, I can get it right for you. That will beat the bigger names. So, yeah, the names are fine. They're okay. It would have been a temptation for me from the outside to look at Enrique as being a real temptation and maybe go for it. But if push came to shove in the end, I'd probably went for Poch.
Well, we'll watch with interest. We should mention in Leeds 2, Newcastle 2, which was a good game, actually. I don't know if you caught it, but it was very lively and it was good. Eddie Howe was accosted by a fan who has been on the receiving end subsequently of a lifetime ban, and I think the police were involved as well. So I guess that's deterrent enough. There's not much to say beyond condemnation, and you don't want to see it. In some respects, I'm always quite surprised, given how accessible a football pitch is. I mean, we see strikers get on all the time, and there are, and I'm not talking about this gentleman, I hasten to add, but there are a fair share of lunatics around. I'm always kind of amazed that it doesn't happen more often.
I see your point completely. I mean, having lived through all the different versions of it, from, being completely open to people being caged, to what happened in Hillsborough, to let's get this back to normality again, to massive stewarding. There's a million different ways it's gone, but it seems, we're in a situation where there's very few. They had that wee period a season or two ago where people were just coming on the pitch all the time at the end of seasons, and there was a few incidents then, and that seems to have kind of died down. That seemed to be a little fashion for a little while. Yeah. But as a player, as a coach, it's concerning. But you're right, it's very, very rare. It's amazing how rare it is that sort of thing's happening, considering how mad some people can get at football games. So, in a way, it's the oddest thing to say, but the fact that it happens and we're shocked by it is probably quite a good thing, because it is that weird and unusual.
I guess you've been in football stadiums, how many decades of your life now, in one form or another?
Was it 15, like, four and a bit decades, maybe.
Yeah, okay. So you've sort of seen it all, experienced it all, been stuck out in the wing for some fairly testy portions of of your time, and now you're there as a pundit quite often. How would you characterise current behaviour in general at football stadiums in comparison to those 30, 40 plus years?
The past is a different country. We can't compare it. I mean, the stuff that I used to go down the wing, it was unbelievable. But I laughed at it. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, I'm sure I've told you a story before, running up the wing. I mean, used to get dogs abuse down at West Ham. I always used to blow them kisses, which annoyed the hell out of some of them even more. But that one time playing against Hearts, and it was running up the wing. Hey, Nevin, you're too old. Ignore them. Next one, Nevin, you're getting baldy. Ignore them. Nevin, you're crap. Ignore them. Last time I went up, Nevin, your book's rubbish. No, you've gone too far, mate. Turned around up there, dig at him, and I said to him, "Do you know what? You must have bought it." He said, "No, I got it at a library." Although there is a corollary to that. What's his name? I was down playing against Celtic. This was a book I wrote years ago, and it was a few weeks later, and as I was running down, a Celtic fan shouted on for the jungle as it was then, "Hey, Nevin, your book lacks literary merit."
That stuck with you.
Quality abuse. No, there was much, much worse, and there was racist stuff and all that stuff. So look, it's a lot better than it was. There was violence on the stands. There was horses on the pitches. I've been through all that. We're a million times better than we were, but we don't give up trying to improve.
And has there been? This is like such a kind of cliche thing to say, or a question to ask almost. Have you detected any kind of deterioration post-COVID? People's latent frustration being borne out post the pandemic, or pretty much no obvious difference?
It seemed that for a wee while.
Yeah.
But it depends where you go. It really depends where you go. The game seems very... I was in Milan on Wednesday for Inter versus AC, right?
Yeah.
And amazing. Just wall of noise. It was a absolute privilege to be there, and the pictures and that. I mean, so much so that I even tweeted about it, and I'm not the greatest tweeter in the world, and showed pictures of what I was seeing, and it's amazing. And then I went to the Manchester United game, and it looked like a tourist outing. It felt like a tourist outing. Now, before Man United fans start having a go at us, Chelsea can feel like that. There's a lot of people in those stadiums that aren't necessarily, dyed in the wool, complete and utter fans of the team.
Old Trafford is an absolute destination point for day trippers.
It's completely. And do you know what? If that's the way you want to do it, that's the way you want to do it. Or that's the way it works. But it was unbelievably noticeable. And while I was doing the commentary, the co-coms, the the opposition fans were shouting, the Wolves fans were singing. Well, I've not used the exact words. What a very poor home support they were singing, but not to those words. But they were out shouting, a lot of the United fans, for the vast majority of the game. And it's not a dig at United fans. There are huge numbers of great United fans absolutely everywhere around this country, these islands in the world. But, there's a number of places where
Old Trafford's very snoozy. I mean, and if they want to get in their high horse, look no further than Roy Keane 20 years ago talking about the Prawn Sandwich Brigade. I mean, it really does have that aspect, Old Trafford.
And I think you have to be careful, because I thought that Arsenal could go down that way, but Arsenal's not been like that this season. Arsenal's been absolutely brilliant this season. Every time I've went to the Arsenal ground, it's been phenomenal, and they've really got behind their team. To be fair, there weren't that many of them left in the last 5 minutes at the weekend there, but look, they've been great. So yeah, and there's enough.
I take the point. Arsenal definitely rejuvenated by what's happening on the pitch. It's quite an affluent area, and tickets aren't cheap, no more so than Old Trafford. I did wonder in recent years if the younger fan in their 20s, louder, more alive and kicking, was perhaps going to be priced out of games, and therefore we would see a decline in atmospheres.
But look, there's a big story happening here. A lot of the clubs know that if you've got a season ticket holder, he's going to pay X amount for that seat for the whole season. If you can sell that same seat to a different tourist every week, you will probably multiply the income by 5 or 10 times. So it's economics.
Yeah.
It's a shame though, because it negatively affects the atmosphere in quite a lot of the games. And that's, if you're asking me what it feels like going around the grounds, well, I'm going to Forest at the weekend here for the Arsenal game. I'm looking forward to that, because that'll be great. And I'm certainly going to Leeds every time. I love going to Leeds because it's absolutely fantastic every time. Newcastle, never less than brilliant. But it's not the same everywhere.
Yeah, some clubs may be victims of their own success. We are out of time. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
We'll speak to you next week.
Yeah, thanks so much. Pat Nevin with us live on the line, as ever on a Monday. And our football show coverage is brought to you by Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports. Just gone full time at the King Power Stadium. 3-0 win. Liverpool away from home keeps their run going and consigns Leicester to further trouble. Full time up in Derry. 3-0 win for Derry against Dundalk, and a really good game at Tallaght Stadium. 4 minutes to go. Shamrock Rovers 2, St Pat's 2.
Football on Off the Ball.
With Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game this season on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
This is News Talk.
Hi, I'm Louise Cooney, and I want to tell you all about my podcast, Open Book, which is back for season 2. We've got a great cast of friends, well-known personalities and authors lined up for this season, who'll be sharing the life lessons that help guide them on their path and explaining what success really means to them, as well as giving us some tips for creating your dream life and setting those all-important boundaries. Listen first to the new episodes of Open Book each Wednesday on the Go Loud app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Avril, stop playing.